God has blessed us with 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. And they bring so much joy and delight to us. And the topic today is very unique because it is a blend that catches all age brackets without any kind of excuse. Too young, too soon, got more time, doing life with a strategy. So it's appealing to all of us. You could be 50 years, you could be 60 years, but in the eyes of God, all of us are children. There is no grandchild of God. There is no father of God amongst us. We are all children. And we are coming from that point of view. Too young, too soon, got more time. Those are the things that run in our mind, especially when we are thinking about laying a strategy and, bringing life closer to us. I've prepared something that I'm going to share in a couple of slides, but I thought I needed to give this sharing a bit of a background. So many times we have time on us that we do not realize is clicking clockwise until you have gone beyond your time of shining. The closest is the midlife crisis, like it was shared about yesterday. When midlife crisis catches up with you, you want to go back and redeem the time. So this topic has come to us at a time when many of us could be battling a certain line of conversation. And my prayer this evening is that God will use me to speak to each one of us. As I speak to you, I'll be speaking to myself that I will be living in my time. So that was the topic that I was given to share. And I developed something around strategy. And I'm hoping it's going to bless us. I'm hoping it's going to bless us. So friends, I hope you can see my screen. I pray and hope you can see my screen.
Yes, Paul.
Thank you. Yes. So too young, too soon, got more time. Have you got time? Like I said earlier, many of us think we have time, but until time has caught up with you, that's when you realize you do not have time. So I've sub-themed the topic today with those lines: the art of setting realistic goals. I'll use the Word of God as a reference, and I'll use a couple of books that I've interfaced that can help us set realistic goals, but also I'll come from a point of sharing a bit of experience. Let me start with the story that each one of us is familiar with. When we read the Bible, we can never do away with the story, the Exodus story of the children of Israel from the land of slavery to the promised land. And these stories are found in the book of Exodus. A bit of it is found in Genesis at the end. And then some of this story is recorded in the book of Deuteronomy. We know that the books have mentioned were written by Moses, like we read from Bible scholars. And yes, there is something that happened around the children of Israel. On their journey to the promised land, if you called the promised land as your vision or the end in mind, you're going to relate with me that you can't move an inch to that vision until you've had a certain level of preparation. So the children of Israel moved, tired of the whips from the slave drivers in Egypt. They embark on the journey led by Moses, who was a stammerer. And I'm trying to build something so that we can relate. Moses was a stammerer, and God chose him. He picked him to lead, I think, millions of Israelites that were oppressed in the land of Egypt. So they embark on the journey and move. But at a certain time, the Israelites started grumbling. They were tired and they were a pain in the eyes of Moses, to the point that as a human being, he started rethinking his role of leadership. And so they kept disturbing him and making all sorts of statements. And I believe you can relate with me. When you're actually fatigued and tired, you will probably put down statements that are unkind. And so God saw and witnessed that these guys were not ready. He had to make them rotate around a small place before they could cross over. For 40 years, 40 years, they rotated around a certain space. They were not ready as it was at that time. And until they were ready, they could not move. So we are going to engage in this subtopic, the art of setting realistic goals. The art of setting realistic goals. And that is our sub-theme that is coming from too young, too soon, got more time, doing life with a strategy. And many of us will think you're too young. It's too soon for you to think about a strategy of life. And you might run under the rhetoric, I have more time. And you forget about the realities. You forget about the eventualities that come as the days go by. There is sickness, there are catastrophic events that God has hidden from us. And if we are not prepared to come through, it becomes a very difficult journey of life. I did a bit of digging, and I discovered that goals in life are basically the map that will guide you and me towards your God-given purpose. Goals are the roadmap that will guide you toward your God-given purpose. Now, there are two words there, God-given and purpose. Many times when you talk about purpose, people get lost. A God-given purpose is actually tagged to each individual on earth. Each one of us has a God-given purpose, and that purpose has a timeline. And the earlier you realize that purpose, the better for you. The earlier you realize your God-given purpose, the better for you. One will ask, how do I realize my God-given purpose? And I'll tell you that you can only realize your God-given purpose by bringing the word of God close to you. We can find purpose in the New Testament, in so many books in the New Testament, but purpose can be related to the gifts that God has given unto us, the calling upon your life. I know my purpose on earth, my God-given purpose on earth is to call out potent or potential in the lives of young people. The other one is to affirm and believe in situations that do not have, life. And so it can be one, there could be many, but there are certain subdivisions that make that God-given purpose a reality. So you're going to find me with the young men and women. You'll find me with the old. You'll find me with the children. At every level, there is a level of entry. There is a level of engagement. And for me, that is my call. And without setting the map or the goals, you will wander in circles without getting where you need to go. You probably may take more time, like the children of Israel did, than you would have taken if you had known your goal in life or your purpose in life. More about the Bible is God doesn't want us to forge ahead in pride without consulting him for direction. I'll pause there and go back to the storyline I gave about the children of Israel. There was pride, there was egocentrism, there was abuse. The children of Israel were doing lots of things that revealed to God that they were not ready to get to the land that God had promised, that had milk and honey flowing in. And so he had to make them rotate around that space for 40 years until he had the right people to cross over. But neither does God want us to sit around without acting. He calls us to a place of action because he has given us gifts and talents and has also said that we are called to do good works, as it is in the reference that I've shared in this slide. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 to 10, Romans chapter 12, verse 4 to 8, and Matthew chapter 25, 14 to 30. The story of the rich man and the talents. 5 talents were given to one, 2 were given to the other, 1 was given to the other. The one who was given 5 talents multiplied them by 2. So was the one that was given 2. The picture that we get from these 2 that brought return on investment, they probably understood why. They probably understood their goal in life. They knew the art of time. They knew that if the master was to recall that the talents that had been given to them without having a return on investment, they would probably lose. And there is a lot of debate around that, but they must have laid a strategy to ensure that they have return on investment. They laid a strategy to have a return on investment. Friends, you're going to go on. So what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? Sorry. So there is something that I've put across that can help us. The interlock between purpose and strategy. I've talked about a strategy and I've talked about purpose. I've talked about goal. But I want to limit myself to that interlock. When you look at the picture on your men connected to one another, men connected to one another. And it's quite clear. You can actually track the lines from place to place. So what it means for us to have goals or the goals and the vision achieved, you need to interlock purpose and strategy. But how? What is the fuel that is going to help us bring the purpose and the strategy together? Disciplines. And disciplines go by the definition controls gained by enforcing obedience or order. And the other definition to disciplines is being orderly or prescribed, being orderly or a prescribed conduct or pattern of behavior. Now, behavior, for those that have done this psychology, human behavior, for you to develop a certain behavior, it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes intentionality, it takes commitment, and all sorts of things. But with the definition of disciplines being controls gaining by enforcing is a bit of a hard word that could be used in the military setting. The end game is obedience for the statement of enforcement, or bringing in sanity. I'll talk about a gentleman who died, I think, in 2013. This man is by the name Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew was the Prime Minister of Singapore for a very, very long time. And I'll tell you, Lee Kuan Yew in 1963 came and benchmarked Uganda. He came and benchmarked Uganda for the way Uganda was leading itself. At that time, 1963, I think Uganda had a bit of sen policies. People were adhering to the laws, and there was a lot of sanity, if I could use that word, in this nation, to the point that Lee Kuan Yew would come and benchmark Uganda. Now that, to many of us, can be a fallacy, but it's true. It's true. He came and benchmarked. Today, Singapore, in the passing of Lee Kuan Yew, is among the topmost countries with the best, I think, GDP, economics. They are the best. They have the best employment kind of policy. And the workers there are excited to go to work every now and then. But the journey for Singapore to get where it is was effort that was enforced to the point of obedience or submission, that results can come out of that kind of engagement to today. And right now we can ably talk about Singapore as one of the best stories that are modeling excellence at every sphere, with the cleanest streets, with the most organized citizens that know what to do and what not to do. One will say, I heard of somebody that traveled there and came and shared a story of how clean their streets are, that they do not actually spit on the streets. When you're found littering, you actually charged a fine. And for those who have traveled, you'll agree with me that Singapore is a notch higher. But I want to wrap up that whole story of Singapore. When Lee Kuan Yew was still alive, he had ministers. He had ministers that he was leading, like a cabinet of a limited number of ministers. So one of them, I think, must have by mistake, failed to account for about $50. And this guy was going to throw him in actually jail, because the minister could not hold the shame. He actually moved and relocated to the United States of America. So when we talk about disciplines, a bit of them are going to come as a result of enforcement for you to obey or for you to pick a bit of order. Being orderly or prescribed conduct of pattern of behavior is part of inculcating disciplines in us. But remember, we are addressing the interlock between purpose and strategy, and we're using disciplines as our forerunning item or agenda. What is purpose? What is purpose? Purpose is basically the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. I alluded to it earlier, and I said for me, my purpose or call, my God-given burden or call on earth is to release potential out of young men and women, the children, and the vulnerable. And I'll be at the front line doing that. And I do it gladly. I do it without pay. I do it with the joy of the Lord being my strength. So what, as an individual, what do you live for? Have you gotten it yet? Or you're also thinking, I'm too young, it's too soon, I still have more time on me. If you still have those thoughts running in your mind, I want to implore you to change the narrative, because we do not have a lot of time on earth. We live with a clock that does not stop. That second clock is ticking every now and then. It goes clockwise. It goes clockwise. It doesn't stop. It does not wait for you. There is a common Luganda saying, I hope I can say it right. Omugaya vakungula sere. So if you delay, you're going to harvest sere. I do not know even what sere means, but we grew up, our parents telling us, if you delay, you're going to harvest sere. And yes, so when you delay, every minute you delay without knowing why you have been called on earth, you're delaying yourself, because none of us on call, and myself inclusive, knows when God is actually going to call us out of this world. We do not know when we are going to breathe our last breath on earth. So we are at that point of urgency. The earlier you realize your purpose, the better. Purpose can also be seen as a person's sense of resolve or determination. The other one, in my own words, can be defined as a reason for existence. The reason for existence. Some of us live for our children. Some of us live for our wives. Some of us live for our jobs. You're locked up in a job, and as if you were meant, or you were born in the job. Time is going to come when you'll be out of that job, friends. And yes, that's a bit of the purpose that I managed to dig. So between strategy, some of you might be asking, and you could be lost. So what is this guy talking about? What is Paul saying? You said too young, too soon. You know, got more time, doing life with a strategy. Now this is where rubber meets reality. So between strategy and execution, what comes easy? This is where I will now put in a bit of a tool that I've come across that has helped. And I'll ask this question to you and me. Between strategy and execution, or between planning and putting the plan on paper and doing, what comes easy? Of course, the guess is as good, your guess is as good as mine. because it's easier for you to put ideas down. Trouble comes in at the point of doing. And let me remind you, my brothers and sisters on call right now, this trouble, unless we rise up to the occasion, we are going to be preyed upon. We are going to be eaten. Because like I said earlier, the clock is ticking clockwise, no stop. It doesn't stop. There is no single day in my life, history, that I've had, read, or seen the sun stop for a minute. It moves. Once it's 6 p.m., you'll see it setting. Very beautiful colors are going to come from the other side. There is a yellow, there is an orange, and at sometimes of the year, you may see a bit of a red or something like that. So between strategy and execution, what comes easy? Execution is hard. You can plan, but executing is very hard. Why is it hard? We have so many distractions. For those who have children, you have school fees. For those who have children, you have diseases that come as they go to school. There's so many things. When a child is not well, you can never work with peace. Lack of focus. Some of us just, we do not have focus. To whom it may concern, that's the attitude we run with. But if you only knew that you are on a time bomb, you have a clock that is ticking clockwise, it's not stopping for you. That clock does not respect anybody. It does not respect a doctor, a medical doctor, an engineer. You can be the best atomic scientist. You can actually manufacture the planes that go to different planets. Time does not respect it. Time is not, it respects nobody. For it to carry on. So lack of focus could be one of the things that fail execution. Some of us may be at a point of picking a vision. It is not so clear. You keep having voices left and right. You're not sure. You're not in the spaces where a vision can be communicated with clarity. Some of us are comfortable. We have arrived. You know, you take home a certain paycheck and you're like, yeah, this is it. This is enough for me. For those who have lived long enough, you know that we have had the Ugandan currency go through changes, phases. I watched a bit of a session on TV, I think last week, and somebody was debating the zeros, so many zeros that were on the currency. There were few zeros in a certain regime, and today we have so many. And that has a way it plays out in the econometrics of this nation. So for you who thought you had arrived then with those few zeros on the currency, it's a different story right now. You have 4 zeros on one note of the Ugandan currency, 50,000. You know, there are stories that I heard from my grandfather. There are plots of land. There is actually an acre of land he bought at 500 shillings. 500 shillings then was holding a lot of authority as far as weight is concerned in money. So today you cannot. What does 500 shillings do? So some of us can be settled. We do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. There are those who think, they do not have motivation. And see, there is no hope. You're not motivated to do anything. And so you fail to execute a plan that could be the best plan, that could probably even liberate many more people out there. There are some that say they've seen so many stories of failure and they don't see inspiration at all. And for that, I'll quickly say we need to mind the kind of friends we live, we work with, the peers we have, and things of that sort. Before I go to the disciplines of execution as a strategy to this, I want to relay a story that all of us are familiar with. Many times we celebrate Christmas in December, but we do not know a bit of the background to Christmas. The child you celebrate, you and I celebrate, when he was about 13, 14, when he was a teenager, he was actually put away because he had been lost from his parents, father and mother. They looked for him for days, only to find him with scribes discussing things of mature men and women. Please don't quote me wrong. They were discussing issues that required intelligence. Now, we see Jesus Christ manifest over 20 years later in the space where he was not. He was being prepared. God was preparing him to do work, to do ministry for 3 years. And he did a good job. That when he came to the limelight, when he was 30 years, he did his work in 3 years. And in the 3 years, he had brought salvation to humanity. So the stories around us, the peers around us, and you realize he picked the disciples. He was very careful. He did not pick everybody. He was very strategic in picking the people that would walk with him. Of course, they were disciples, they were his followers, but somebody would also think they were his peers. But being Christ, I would tread carefully with that narrative of peers. He was their leader. They were his friends. That could be the closest I could get as far as their relationship, his relationship with the disciples was. And so, friends, as we move into this whole aspect of execution, as we look around for the antidote to execution, it's important for us to know the kind of friends that we have every now and then. So what now? Mark McKinsey talks about 4 disciplines of execution, and is the very one who asked between a strategy, between laying a strategy and execution, what comes easy? And many people, of course, fell for the obvious. It's easier for you to lay a strategy, but executing that strategy is very hard. And I've just talked about some of the things that fail us from executing a strategy that has been laid down. So because he knows we do not want to interface with books, he wrote a book and summarized that book. Of course, there is a lot of detail in all the disciplines, but he highlighted the 4 disciplines of execution. So he said that for you to be able to execute, you need to identify a wildly important goal. He abbreviated the wildly important goal as wig, not the wig of the women, that hair wig, not the wig, but the wildly important goal. And friends, I'll be going back and forth. Remember, we're looking at too young, too soon, got more time. And I've just said that we do not have time. Each one of us does not have time. So he says, identify the wildly important goal, your wildly important goal. Dream wild, get that goal. And for Christians on call right now, I would encourage you to get a goal that is tagged to the biblical giftings. To the biblical giftings. So get it. Don't get two, get one. But if you can handle two, get them. And number two, he says, focus on the lead and the lag measures. And you'll be wondering, what are the lead and the lag measures? I'm going to use a bit of an explanation in helping us understand the lead and the lag measures. The lead measures are, I want to describe them as the effort or the fuel that helps you focus on the wildly important goal. To bring it closer, let me use the narrative of football. In a football game between Manchester United and Arsenal, you're going to find that these are tough teams. Both of them are tough. And when I talk about Manchester United and Arsenal, and I know that I'm inciting a bit of emotions. There are some that had been quiet and they're like, Naipo, what are you talking about? We had buried the football stuff. But yes, in a football game, if Arsenal will have more chances at winning the game against Man U when the ball possession is 90% compared to 10% for Man U. When they have so many shots on target, when they have more free kicks, when they do have those corner kicks. Now, those are the things, because the end game is winning Man U, beating Man U heads down. Arsenal is going to do literally everything possible. They are going to possess the ball. They are going to ensure that they don't get fouled, okay? The Man U guys are the ones fouling, so they will have free kicks, they will have corner kicks, they will have the ball in their possession, and that will bring them closer to the win. We know what happened between Manchester City and I think Inter Milan. I think the Italians were very hurt that an English team could take the trophy. But yes, so if your end game is winning the Champions League, what are you doing in that game? How did you perform in the previous, in the group stages, then to the quarters, and then to the semifinals, and then to the finals? Of course, there are teams that get dropped off, but right now we're only having one team that has taken the trophy of UEFA Champions League. So those are some of the things you concentrate on as the lead measures that are going to help you achieve the big or the wildly important goal. The lag measures are really direct. I wouldn't want to go into the lag, but focus should be on the lead. What are you doing on a daily in ensuring that you're taking the wig at home? So the third discipline is for you to create a compelling scoreboard. What that means is you need to create a bit of a strategy that is going to give you it will raise the enthusiasm in you. What I mean is you can have as many options as possible. You can have a pie chart that speaks into the successes. For instance, if it's a football game, the number of training sessions a player has had before the finals are key. The possession in the actual game is key. In the first half, if they've been taking you, what are you going to do? Laying down the strategy for you to win. So every time you win, you go and tick. You go and tick. And you're like, okay, I did this so well. The checklist, it can be like a checklist. I've succeeded. The team is okay. They're healthy. You know, like they're physically fit to engage. They're mentally well. They are not ill. They do not have injuries. So you tick all those things, and those things that you have ticked are going to bring you closer. They're going to bring you closer to the wig. Now, the fourth is to have a cadence of accountability. What this basically means is, in the difficulty of setting up a strategy and executing, you are encouraged to have a cadence of accountability. These are friends, people that are going to put you to task. If, for instance, you have failed in, let's use football. Namonyo has been beaten and they are looking forward to also winning a trophy like the premiership. What do you do? So you need to have friends that are going to be very brutal with you, brutally true to you. They will tell you you walk like this. Many times when you're watching football with friends, they'll be they are better coaches than the coach that is actually training or even leading the team. They are better off. So listen to that feedback from the friends, and you're encouraged to do this once in a week if you can, and limit it to about 30 minutes. Now, friends, at the end of the day, this is just like the summary of the 4 disciplines of execution. And don't fall for the statements I've put here. It's a detailed book. It's a detailed book that has detailed explanation. But for the sake of helping us pick the niche, I believe we can actually run with this and execute the strategy and execute our vision and have it come to fruition. So the 4 disciplines of execution, execution is the art of thriving. That is my own line. If you learn the art of execution, friends, you're going to thrive. You're going to be happy. You're not going to struggle. You will not struggle. Today, when I was actually meditating and thinking about this engagement, John Maxwell is a very respected leader. And all of us can agree with me. Very respected to the point that he has written so many books. He has influenced Christian leaders. And there is a leadership quote that has come off him in several of his books. And he says, everything rises and falls on leadership. But today I thought to myself, probably if I was given an opportunity to critique that statement, I would think everything rises and falls on the choices we make. I'll say that again. Everything rises and falls on the choices we make every now and then. Yes, leadership, correct. But I would also imagine everything rises and falls on the choices we make. I do not know what is in the chat group. And I imagine there are things in there, but I want to leave it there. My duty today was to just share a burden about the timeline. You can never run with the rhetoric, I'm too young. It's too soon. I still have more time. I think we ought to rise up to the occasion and then take the spheres that God has planted in our lives to influence this world. Some of us are thinking, okay, there are other guys that are going to come. There are other guys that are going to come. I actually had a very brutal and a radical thought, because we used to run under that rhetoric that there are guys that are going to come, that are going to take over. And I'm like, hey, I realized years we're running, the guys that are below us, you know, they have their own things. They have their own season. And so when you are on this call and you're not living and operating in your God-given purpose, you're not in your season, I believe the onus will be on you. I'll end with this. Ezekiel chapter 18, verse 32. I'm interested in the last line. there was a lot that was happening in the time God revealed this vision to Ezekiel. There was a lot around the children of Israel. But the last line says, repent and live. And for some of us, this talk is going to lead us to a place of self-reflection, a place where you realize a lot of time has been wasted and you are at the place of urgency, and you may need to be supported by people that are close to you, that understand, that have lived in excellence concerning some of the spheres of influence that you might be attached to. Friends, I want to leave it at that point and ask if there is an opportunity for a question that I could respond to. I'll be very glad. If there is a comment that somebody can actually put across, I'll be glad. And yes, back to you, Uncle Bob.
Thank you very much, Paul. Very detailed, very deep, and you were very clear. Thanks for this sharing. Thank you for taking us through. Do we still think we are too young? Is it too soon? If you've been with us right from the beginning, right now, I think if you came in thinking you're too young to start on something, or it is too soon, it's too early, I don't think you still hold the same sentiments. Paul, thank you very much once again. Has been very clear. One of the things that you mentioned that came straight, and I picked very loud and clear, is that discipline is a recipe for success. And without discipline, you cannot attain your goal. Also, you mentioned that preparation is very important, giving an example of the Israelites who were not ready at the time they left Egypt. They had to be rotated around. Some of us have been kept in one place because we are not ready. We only admire but are not prepared to get to what we admire. And of course, we need to prepare and avoid pride. If we are proud, pride will deter us from reaching our goals. And of course, you took us through the goal, the purpose, and all that. And it is time now for questions, ladies and gentlemen. Marklin at some point was perplexed by the kind of English that you are sharing. Thank you very much. I'm sure Marklin has added to her dictionary and her vocabulary. Tomorrow morning it is going to wake up very polished, more than it was today. I have some questions that have come to my inbox. I have question number one is, how do you maneuver from a wrongly set goal? Assuming you're pursuing a goal and you have already started on it, you are moving forward, then along the way, you realize that actually from the word go, I had set a wrong goal. The wildly important goal was not the important goal. How do you reset to, let me use the word, factory settings, to restart and move and then realign yourself? Over to you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful question there. How do you get back to the factory setting if you realize that you have you are on the wrong path, really, if I could use that analogy. Now, there is no one size fits all, and it's expected that you're going to get to a place where you're at the cliff, at the tail end of the cliff. The other side, there is a big there is a big steep that you cannot get there. This is where you need support from the cadence of accountability. These friends that you have around you should actually be into, they should have a stake in the vision or the wildly important goal that you've put across. Some of these could be mentors Some of these could be people that are interested in your growth. And so when you have these meetings on a weekly basis, you are able to tell that you're climbing a wrong tree, that there is a lion on that tree. The power in having friends who are interested in your growth is so that they can help see the dangers and even offer a bit of solutions and direction to that space. But yes, it's true, and I'll share an experience. We did a project with some of my friends, and that project, I think we were too ambitious. We had not actualized the cash flows. So we ran it for about 6 months, and it was eating a lot on us. And so 6 months, we were doing all these things that Mark McKisney is talking about, meeting on a weekly basis. And in one of the meetings for 30 minutes, we discovered that we are going to make a profit that was not realistic, yet we had pushed in so much money. And so we had to change the strategy, and we adjusted the vision of the project. And at the end of the day, we managed to relate and have something that we were able to deal with. As I speak, the project is now moving well, and we are doing well. But straight to your question, you say, how do I maneuver from a goal that is not going to yield? The friends that you have in the cadence of accountability will offer the support, and that is part of the reason as to why you call them. You call them to your space. They are there to support you and to help you get into the wildly important goal. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you very much for the answer. Going back to the issue of discipline, actually here Irunga Moses is saying his take home is discipline. Without discipline, you have lost the bridge and you may not be able to cross over. Thank you very much. And that brings me to the next question about still the discipline. How does one hold themselves accountable? You talked about decadence of accountability. How does one hold themselves accountable during execution, being one of the disciplines of execution?
Yes. Thank you very much, Bob. Again, before you actually, for some, before you get into, I started from the point of purpose, and I was relating, encouraging us to have the goals that are tagged to the Bible. But let me be a bit open and share this. Until you have had a certain level of pain and you cannot take it anymore, I believe you're not yet ready to engage in certain disciplines, in a certain vision. When you look at the people, these business gurus that have gone ahead of us, there was a lot of pain. They were uncomfortable. They were very uncomfortable. That you have to go through a certain level of uncomfortability for you to find yourself in life. There is no wealthy man that has found wealth on a silver platter. When you look at the guys who are into computer and stuff like that, Bill Gates may not be the best example to pull here, but there is a bit of learning that we can pick. A story goes on that he did not complete his undergraduate, that he built the Microsoft in a garage. Mark Zuckerberg, the same. In that process of building, there is pain. There is a lot of pain. that you have to go through. And it takes me back to that point of until you have gotten to a certain level of pain, you may not be ready. And John Maxwell says in the 15 laws of invaluable growth, one of the laws is the law of pain. That until you have gone through a certain amount of pain, I believe you're not ready to break even. You have to get tired, and the fatigue has to be so pronounced that you will be running with probably that vision as your last resort. With or without it, life is done. That until we've gotten to that point, I think we are not yet ready to discuss. We may still be in the level of distractions. You're comfortable, you're not yet ready, you're thinking you're too young, you have more time. And my brother Bob and the rest on call, I want to ask a question here, and I hope none of us will be vulnerable. If you do not have a father and mother, I mean, the kind of effort you're going to put in everything is to the effect that you will not have any excuse. You're going to give it your best because there is no mom, there is no dad. The story is different when you have mom and dad and they're providing for you. I mean, it's a different story. So some of the pain would push you to the point of living as if you don't have a father or mother, living as if you're a slave, and the best is going to come out of you. I have an uncle who lost his parents when he was still young. And so he meets a young boy, meets him on the streets, and he asks for money, and he was running with the rhetoric, I am an orphan. Little did he know that this gentleman was equally an orphan. So he told him, young man, I'm also an orphan, but I work very hard to ensure that I am able to provide for myself and for my family. So there is a level of pain that we may have to go through, a level of frustration that you may have to go through, and the pain is supposed to teach us to be resilient. When we choose a certain vision, we go with it to the very end. Bob, I don't know whether I've answered, but that's to the best of my abilities.
Yeah, thank you you really answered. And you talked about your last story of the orphan. So many times we meet people who are able-bodied, but because they have told to themselves a story of as rejected, I started and failed. So they make themselves vulnerable. They think they are entitled to, they develop a sense of entitlement for handouts and things like that. And it's good you're in that field of lifting young men and the vulnerable to identify and use their potential. It is an area as a country, Uganda, actually continent Africa, where we need a mindset change. And thank you very much. Just to add a few things, talking about setting a goal, one thing I would like to add is that when you set a goal, please don't let it stay in your head. Write it somewhere.
Yes.
I have done this. I have set a personal goal. I've set a family goal. And these are framed, and we know them as a family, and we refer to them from time to time, and what we need to do to reach those goals. I found it always challenging. Look at it, and then you find that in the last 1 month, you've not done much about your goal. It's already challenging. When you don't write, it is very easy to forget, and you remember after so many months, and it is very hard to pick up. Thank you very much, Paul, once again. It's been so wonderful. I seem to have come to the end of the questions that we had from the team, from the members present. I will now request the host to make Reverend Benjamin a co-host so that he can bless us.
Amen.
As in Reverend Benjamin